Okay, hey there positive people, you got Dana here, and today I'm going to be doing a video that was actually requested by me from one of my subscribers. And this is basically a more elaborate video. Let me flip down my little viewfinder so I can just look directly at the camera. But this is basically going to be an in-depth video on how I made the move to Seattle, what I did from beginning to end. So, some backstory. I have been living here since September of 2014. September 2015 made a year, and prior to moving in September of 2015, I visited for a week in June or July of 2014, excuse me. And at the time, I visited the Fremont area, that is Seattle proper. I don't live in Seattle proper. I need to say that because I think a lot of people just assume that I live down there. I have a daughter. That's not the ideal place to raise a kid. I live in North Seattle, in King County, in North Seattle. And that's as far as I'm going to go as far as where I'm located because people are crazy online. So anyway, I pretty much, when I was deciding where I wanted to relocate to, I had like a top 5 list of places. No need to really elaborate on the places that I had on my list, but where I live now was in my top 5 list. I'd saved up money when I was still in Georgia for this trip. I'm the queen of just multiple hats. I have always been someone who believes in the power of residual income and side income and secondary income. You know, you can save for damn near anything if you have other things going on besides your full-time job. So I did surveys, I sold on eBay, and I saved up a couple $1,000 because at first I thought that I was just going to come here and just go it, but instead I ended up just taking a trip, a week trip, like I said, down to Fremont. So what I did was, when I first came here, you know, I booked my round trip ticket and everything, and I made it my business to not just make the trip about pleasure and sightseeing. I wanted to test the waters as far as how quickly I could secure job placement. So the first 2 days of being in Seattle proper, I spent that time sending out my resume. I used a fake address on my resume, and I'm not really giving advice. This is just what I did. This is what I felt like I needed to do. But I basically put a fake resume, put a fake address on my resume, and then I sent it out to as many people as possible, and I ended up securing 4 interviews within the first 48 hours of me landing here. That was a good sign for me because I felt like, whoa, lots of people are hiring. There are tons of job opportunities. And not even that, my resume was good enough to get the feedback that I needed to get back. So yeah, I basically secured a bunch of interviews to test the waters and make sure that job availability and landing jobs is a real thing. I actually went through with 2 of the interviews and was offered job opportunities. That's when really the light bulb clicked for me, and I decided at that time that I was going to make the move permanent. Now, before I actually made the move permanent, again, I sat and, you know, saved tons of money. And before I left, I made sure that I had 3 to 4 months worth of rent. And keep in mind now, I went on Craigslist and basically put up a roommate ad asking if there was anybody who could afford the price range that I had set for myself, especially considering the fact that I just wanted to rent a room and not a place. I wanted to make it so that, you know, the situation that I was putting myself in, especially considering the fact that I'm a mom, was freaking foolproof. And that if worse came to worse and I fell on my ass, I could easily just go back home to Atlanta and just continue life per usual. So I did that. And then I moved out here. Now, I didn't just, keep in mind, I had leads for roommates before I moved out as well. I told people the situation, that I was moving from Atlanta, blase, blase. So once I got on the plane, landed here, I got an Airbnb now. I got an Airbnb for a couple days, and basically what I was going to end up doing was using the Airbnb for a week and then canceling if a roommate lead ended up working out, which was the case. 3 days into my Airbnb stay, I secured housing with someone. I'd interviewed, you know, all my roommate leads and went with the best person at the time. I don't live with her anymore. She turned out to be this hippie psycho, which is another thing you kind of have to look out for. I made sure that that first roommate was month to month so I could basically leave and not have any attachments. And then I ended up where I am now, which is much better, and you know, everything is near and it worked out great. But that's pretty much the long and short story of my moving here. I don't feel like that's the path that everyone needs to take, but I will say that if moving here is something that you want to do and you want to make a real go of it, don't come here until you have a couple months rent saved, because it's really hard to find that ideal job or the best job within a couple weeks time. Also too, you want to get your feet wet and feel where it is you're going to end up, which is why I took that week trip first, because I didn't want a situation where, oh wow, I'm stuck here, there's no way out, what do you do? Beyond that, my advice to anyone who's deciding to make the move, especially if you're coming from the East Coast or the South, is appreciate the culture shock, embrace the culture shock, because it's going to be that. Doesn't really matter what your background is, how open, honest, and accepting you are about the world. It's different out here. It is very different. Sorry it's not a more engaging story, but that's it. Till later. Peace, positive people.